he grew up and he mentions it in the film, and for legal reasons we really did have to keep that very limited. But he talks about some of the kind of issues as a young boy growing up, and Peter himself has broken those cycles. He is a very different kind of parent to the way he was parented. And I think that's also, many of us have suffered from less than optimum childhoods, and to see somebody make such a clearly live differently is very inspiring.
It is indeed. So we talk a lot about Peter, but of course behind each great man there's a great woman, Colleen, the mother, in her early 30s, coping with all these kids. 5 at the start of the movies, and there's a 6 on the go. You can see there, and yet there's no sense of struggle or hardship, in a sense that she's not whinging. She's embracing it all. She's got this calming, soothing, wholesome presence, the Mother Earth presence, really.
Well, we filmed for nearly 4 years, and we had, nearly 100 hours worth of footage, and of course the film, as you see, is only 82 minutes, so there's a lot that didn't make it in there. And in all that time, and since we finished the film, I've spent a lot of time with Colleen. I've never once heard her raise her voice to her children. She is the calmest, most competent, most gentlest mother you can imagine, and her children absolutely respect her. Wild when it suits, when it's suitable to be, perfectly respectful. They can, be running around like crazy kids, riding their horses, and wash their hands and sit down and eat a meal with beautiful manners, and then jump up and do the dishes. They are the most remarkable children, and she is, I just can't speak highly enough for her parenting. It's so inspiring.
It is indeed. And when you watch the children ride horses bareback,
I want to do that.
It's just quite amazing. Yeah. You can picture many mothers sort of going, "No, darling, don't do this. It's dangerous." But she's actually very she's raising very confident kids. You can tell, but also she ponders about their education. There's some questions you can tell in her mind about the challenges they may face later as adults, living this
ideal
marginalized life in a way.
Yeah. I mean, that is one of her concerns. I mean, she starts to say, "I worry about the children and their future," and you think. I mean, I remember when she was saying this to me, and you think that she's going to talk about, well, we live with very little, and that this is a disadvantage for them. But no, she's thinking the opposite. She's thinking, this life is so ideal, will they be able to have a life like this in the future, where you can just go and camp on the beach, where you can go up into the mountains and ride and have that freedom. So she does not see the hardship. She only sees the good all the time. And as for risk, I mean, I've had a lot of comments from people who feel that the film really shows children doing very risky things. And, I mean, I know these kids have never had a broken bone. They don't put them on horses that haven't been trained properly. But also the children, it's like you don't give a child a sharp knife unless you've taught them how to handle a sharp knife.
Absolutely.
So they are... They're taught to be competent.
That's it, absolutely. And speaking of hardship, we never know really what is at the core of the feud with Peter's father, but they end up losing the house and some of the horses, and they have to move to yet another beautiful spot. And they seem to embrace hardship and challenges in the same way they ride horses. Actually, they're at one with it and go for it. There's this sense of togetherness, which is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that they don't process it as hardship.
No,
they see it as choice. I mean, they do have choices. It's not like they're living the way they do because there is no choice. This is how they want to live. For Peter and Colleen and their children, this is the ideal life. And it's not like a second option, let's make the most of this difficult time. This is the life we choose.
Sumner, there's one thing that I noticed, stood out for me, and that is in this age of documentary making, one can dwell on the indigenous, on the Maori links there, but you don't, almost purposely, you haven't focused on that to talk about, the maintaining culture and all of that stuff. Was there a reason for doing that?
No, not particularly. It was just the way that's how they live. They are not that connected in that way. I think, for them, the fact that Colleen is Māori and they live within a Māori community, that's just part of who they are. It's not something that they separate from themselves. It's as comfortable and normal for them as their horses. And I think that, that because they live in the country, because they're not in the city, the political dimensions of of how you define yourself as Māori or as any Indigenous person is not so great. So it's much more just a very normal part of their lives. But we didn't go into it because it isn't. They don't go into it.
Sure, and it makes sense.
Now, it's been doing the festival circuit, and what sort of reactions do you get? And also, Sumner, what sort of questioning, reflection would you like the people who see the film to embark on when the credits start rolling?
It's an excellent question. I'll start with the second part. That what seems to happen is that, and the thing that we really wanted to do with this film is that it's very easy, particularly when you make a film about Indigenous people, it's very easy for as an audience to look at them and go, oh, they're just poverty-stricken and they've got too many children. And, we are, as humans, we're all very critical. It's a normal thing to be judgmental. And what we wanted, my husband Tom and I wanted to do, was to enable the audience to suspend that natural judgmental nature and see their life the way they see their life. And coincidentally, what seems to have happened, the feedback we get, is that by doing that, people, rather than spending their energy being judgmental on the Karena life, reflect back on their own choices because they see that this family have made these choices and that they've made choices not to be wealthy. They've made choices to have other types of wealth. And I think they look at their own family lives and their own intimate relationships, and maybe they feel that they are the ones in poverty.
Indeed. That is certainly something that crosses the mind.
Yes, I know. And we didn't set out to teach anyone a lesson, but we did want to break down those judgmental barriers. And when you ask about festivals, we won an award at the Berlin International Film Festival. In a group, in the area, the part of the festival we were competing in, we were the only documentary. It was all feature films. So it was pretty amazing to be in that section and then to win a prize. And the theatre was, 1,000-seat theatre, and at every screening we had standing ovations, full house and standing ovations, and people crying and asking all these really in-depth questions. And it was really amazing to see this film about this family in New Zealand translated to a very sophisticated urban people in the middle of Berlin.
Now, you're hoping that the same thing's going to happen in New Caledonia in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, isn't that great? The film is screening in New Caledonia at a festival called A Man's Shadow that takes place from the 29th of October to the 7th of November. And actually we've been invited, so we're really looking forward to that. It's going to be to me, that sort of festival is really exciting.